Hello, welcome to my channel Learn with Aisha. Here today we are going to study the main concept of the from the chapter the fundamental unit of life. If you are new to my channel, please subscribe to my channel and leave your comment in the comment box and also suggestion where we can improve the area of the improvement. So let us know what is a cell. Who introduced the cell? Cell is the basic structural and functional unit of life. This statement was given by the Schedel, a German botanist, where he studied that every plant is made up of number of cells which have similar structure and performs many essential life process. Then later on, a zoologist Chevron in 1839 made that the similar observation in animals also. Comparing their both finding, they come up with a formulated theory which states that all the living organisms are against whether plant or animal are made up of cells and they serve as a unit of structure and function, and this is known as the cell theory. And what we can learn how these cells is being introduced. So he is the scientist who introduced the cell theory, and during the introduction or the invention of this cell theory he gave three statements. The first one is the cell is the unit of structure of all plants and animals which are composed of cells. Cell is second one is cell is a unit of function of all the metabolic reactions takes place inside them. Metabolic means the breakdown of complex substances into the simple form. And the third statement which he gave is it is the unit of heredity as it contains heredity material inside the nucleus, that is the genetic material, which is passed from one generation to another generation through cell division process. And all the living cells arise only from the pre-existing cells. These modern concepts of cell theory signifies that the structural and functional relationship among the diverse living forms from bacteria to all the men. Now, as I have just said, these are the three statements which was given by. And then the different types of cell. There are single types of cell, multicellular and unicellular. These cells differ from their size, shape, and also the function. As you can see here, the unicellular organism which are made up of a single cell, example bacteria, euglena, chlamydomonas, and multicellular organisms which are nothing but the plants, animals, and the humans. These cells are made up of different types of shapes, and based on their shapes, their function also, such as spherical, oval, rounded, elongated, cuboidal, cylindrical, tubular, and irregular. This cell structure mainly consists of three parts, that is the cell wall, which we can find in the prokaryotic organisms, that means the unicellular organisms, and also in the plant cell. Whereas in animal cell does not have a cell wall. It is the cell membrane which is the first layer, which is the first layer covering the cell is the cell membrane. So it's consists of cell wall, cell membrane, cytoplasm, and the nucleus. A cell wall is found in plants only, and it occurs as a protective covering surrounding the plasma membrane, and it is formed of cellulose. Okay, and it is form of cellulose and a non-living substances which is highly permeable, and it allow the substances in a solution to enter and leave the cell freely. The main function is it provide a definite shape to the plant cell, it provide rigidity to the cell, and also give protection to the internal structure and plasma membrane of the plant cell. And whereas the cell membrane whereas the cell membrane it is surrounded by the plasma membrane or the cell membrane. It lies inside the cell wall. It forms the outer boundary of the cytoplasm. It is a triangular in structure. Its consists are made up of two layers, which is a protein and lipids molecules on the either. Some proteins molecules are embedded either completely within the bilayer, or some carbohydrate molecules may be attached to the protein and lipid molecules. Plasma membrane has fine pores through substances which may enter and leave the cell. The main function of cell membrane is to selectively permit only few substances to pass through, and it prevent the entry of some foreign substances. It protect the inter content and help in maintaining the internal environment of the cell. Whereas in the cytoplasm, it is a compress of all the parts of the cell excluding nucleus. It occupies a major part of the cell. It is semi-solid substances which is colorless and partially transparent. Water is the main component, and it has up to 90% of the water content in the cytoplasm. And there are many chemical reactions taking place in it. The cell membrane or the cell organelles and non-living inclusions are found floating in the cytoplasm. Whereas the nucleus is the main genetic part which consists of the nuclear membrane and the nuclear envelope and the nucleolus, which is mainly a double membrane structure with a space between the outer and inner membrane, which help in several exchange of materials between the nucleus and the cytoplasm. This nucleus is the main nucleus is also consist of chromatin network, which are nothing but the mass tangle of chromatin fibers uniformly distributed in the nucleoplasm. During cell division, this chromatin fiber tends to form a thick ribbon-like chromosomes, and these chromosomes are made up of nucleic acid and proteins. They bear the genes which are made up of DNA, and they carry the hereditary unit. So now let us move to the difference between prokaryotic and the eukaryotic cell. As you can see here, this is an animal cell, and towards your left side is the back. Now this difference between a prokaryotic and the eukaryotic cell. A prokaryote organisms with a primitive nucleus without a true nucleus, that means those cells lack the nuclear membrane, whereas in eukaryotic, a cell having the and in eukaryotic, the organisms which have where the cell have a well-defined nucleus with a nuclear membrane is called as having a true nucleus. Here in eukaryotic, the size is 1 to 100 micrometer, whereas in prokaryote it is 1 to 10 micrometer. In eukaryotic cell, chromosomes are more than one, whereas in prokaryotic, chromosome membrane bound organelles are absent. Chromosomes have a single chromosomes. In prokaryotic, membrane bounded organelles are absent. In eukaryotic, it is present. Cell organelles such as mitochondria, plastid, endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi apparatus, and lysosomes are present, whereas in prokaryotic they are absent. And eukaryotic, they has 80S ribosome. In prokaryotic, they have 70S ribosomes, such as you can see that in bacteria, blue-green alga, whereas in 80S ribosome you can see in the fungi, plants, animals, etc. Eukaryotic cell have the double-stranded chromosomes, whereas prokaryotic have single-stranded chromosomes. This is the difference between which we studied. This is a very important topic. Now let us, as you can see here, the true nucleus, how well it is being defined. Cell wall, here there is no cell wall. Function of a cell. The main function of a cell is nothing but the building blocks of plants and animals. They perform some basic functions such as the transportation of nutrients or energy production, etc. Once the cell is old, which is been always replaced by the new cell, these cells together forms a tissue, and tissue forms to an organ to a organ system and a individual organisms. These function of cells have many cell organelles, as we discussed. So let us study, before we go into the cell organelles, let us study a little more detail about the cell membrane, which we need to study. As you can see that the cell membrane is also known as the plasma membrane, which is the outermost layer in animal cell, and it is a membrane that protect and separate the interior parts of all the cell from the outside environment. It consists of a lipid bilayer that is a semi permeable membrane. These help in regulating of transport of materials from in and outside of the cells. These cell membrane keep the toxic substances out of the cell and contain receptors and channels. As you can see here, see, these are the receptors and channels which are in blue color and yellow color. These channels and receptor which allow only the specific molecules or substances such as ions, nutrients and waste metabolic product to pass in and remove out whichever is not required. Such toxic chemicals are also thrown out of the cell through cell membrane. The main function of a cell membrane is help in identification, modification and communication, regulation of solute exchange through this membrane, and the isolation of the cytoplasm from the external environment. These cell membrane is made up of phospholipid, glycolipid and the cellular. These three membranes are made up. This fluid like structure which is made up of lipid, proteins and carbohydrate. Now let us move to the central part, which is a very important part in the cell membrane. The first is the nucleus. Nucleus is the center of the cell and it is related to the genomics. That means the more the genetic information is being placed in it. These are membrane enclosed organelles within a cell that contain the chromosome. It allows only the selective passage of certain molecules such as proteins and nucleic acid in and out of the nucleuses. These nucleus contain chromosome, the genetic material or the genetic information which is an important part of the cell to be protected. The nucleus control and regulate the activity of the cell and carries the genes, structure and contain the heredity information which is passed from one generation to another generation. As you can see, the nucleus look exactly, only the nucleus part look like this, where it is covered with a nuclear envelope which is a spherical in shape, which consists of nuclear membrane, nucleoplasm, nucleolus and the chromatin network which is in the center called nucleolus. Okay, the main function of the nucleus is to control the genetic information of the cell and control the protein and enzyme synthesis, control of cell division and cell growth, storage of DNA, RNA and ribosomes, and regulation of the transcription of mRNA to protein. That means the protein synthesis usually takes place from transcription and then translated to the protein molecules. These nucleolus which is in the center is also where the ribosomal RNA, that is rRNA genes are transcribed, which are read and where through which the protein synthesis is being taken place. So with this, today we have studied, let us review what all we have studied. Let us review. We have studied about the cell theory, the invention behind the cell theory, a difference between a prokaryotic and eukaryotic cell, and the cell membrane, what a cell consists of: a cell wall, cell membrane, cytoplasm and the nucleus. In the next class or in the next video, we are going to discuss more detail. As you can see, this is the, when you observe these higher magnified structures in the microscope, the cell membrane exactly look like this chain of where the channels and receptors are connected.